can reduce pollution, which we appreciate, and they're using climate commitment funds to do this. So our Climate Commitment Act, which has been so successful helping people build jobs. I talked to the longshoremen. They're really excited about jobs that are being created at the Port of Everett. Good news on that front. This is one example of hundreds across the state of Washington. In fact, there's a map available now showing where a lot of the investments are being made in the Climate Commitment Act, helping families and communities build jobs and get more efficient and safer and healthier energy. So a good day yesterday at the Port of Everett. I want to talk just a moment about one of the tremendous opportunities to save lives that the state legislature has this year, and that is preventing the absolute carnage that is now happening on our streets and highways across the state of Washington. We just learned last year we lost 800 Washingtonians in traffic fatalities across the state of Washington. This is just the 12th time in 55 years where we've ever had that horrendous news to share with Washington. And we ought to know how devastating that is to think of a family that gets a call that maybe your wife's not coming home or your son's not coming home, to think of how devastating that is. And it's happened over 800 times last year in the state of Washington. Here's what I want to say about those deaths. They are preventable. The vast majority of these losses of Washingtonians' lives are preventable. There's things we can do, and there's things the state legislature can do to reduce this horrendous loss on our highways. One of the things we're asking them to do is to allow us to do something that we know that works, and that's speed cameras, because we know speed kills. A significant, if not most of these fatalities have some component of excess speed. We know that when we have cameras that are available, it is very effective in getting people to slow down a little bit, simply to follow the law and get home safely. And we want everybody to get home safely, both for themselves and the other people on the highway that they may kill if they're going too darn fast. And unfortunately, too many people are. Speeds are up. Unfortunately, this is a nationwide phenomenon, and we've got to take common sense measures to get them down. Now, here's the thing about speed cameras. They work to save lives. There is good statistical evidence that when they're in use, the fatality rate goes down 20% on the effective stretch of roads and highways where they're located. Here's what 20% means. It's just a number, but if you applied it across the state of Washington, that'd be about 160 people whose lives could be saved if we could get people to drive at a reasonable rate of speed. So we are very hopeful that the legislature will advance this cause to allow more cities and towns to adopt these cameras where they deem appropriate. Now, here's the other thing about them. They are successful in maintaining privacy of citizens. We know this because we've operated cameras now for years on our highways. This is not a new thing. We have them for millions of miles of travel, and millions of Washingtonians has gone under cameras, and we have been successful in maintaining their private information. So this should not be an issue. Lives should be what we save. We can protect privacy and save lives. There is no reason in this world why we should not do both of those things. So I'm really encouraging the legislature to act on that. Another bill that we can pass is a bill that lowers the blood alcohol. We know that this saves lives as well. We've heard as much as 11% reduction of fatalities. And that's a very meaningful number of people if you do the math. One is a tragedy. But when you have those losses and not taking a meaningful measure against impaired driving, that would be really sad in the state of Washington. So I'm encouraging the legislature to move on that. It's something we first started to talk about last year, and I think more legislators now are starting to wrap their heads around how terrible the losses are. 800 people didn't come home from soccer practice or work. And we have got to have action rather than passivity. We should not be defeatists when it comes to traffic fatalities. So I'm hoping the legislature will move the ball forward, as they have in the past. We've done some things, but we obviously need to do more. Another way we can provide more safety to people is against gun violence. I was appreciative of Trudy testifying in favor of House Bill 1902, which enhances requirements so that we have a permit to purchase in the state of Washington. These are sensible requirements, sensible in the sense that it simply requires a bit of training These are deadly pieces of equipment. Trudy pointed out, and I thought it was telling, and she said, you know, our grandson has to get a learner's permit and some training to drive a car, but when he's a little older, he goes out and gets no training whatsoever and gets a semi-automatic weapon. That's just not acceptable. So we're hoping that that bill passes. There are some also under consideration. The legislators are working hard. They've hit the ground running. I'm really actually impressed how fast they're moving. There's been a number of hearings on bills that I've requested, including our oil industry accountability laws, so we can have transparency in that industry. The bill that proposes linking our carbon markets with California and Quebec, which can restrain compliance costs for businesses. Several measures regarding additional housing, and quite a number. I want to thank them. They're starting at a very rapid pace. So good things are going on, and happy to stand for your questions.
Governor, I wanted to ask about the initiatives. There's been some back and forth between Republicans and Democrats about how to approach the initiatives that have qualified for consideration in the legislature. Wondering what your take is. Should these initiatives be getting hearings for people to weigh in, or I guess what would your approach be if you had the decision?
Well, if there's not a serious discussion about doing something different as an alternative, nor is there an opportunity in a reasonable basis to pass one of these without going to the vote of the people, I'm not sure there's a reason to tie up legislative time for discussions that aren't going to result in any legislative activities. So what I would look at is if there really is no possibility, just counting the votes, of legislative activity either way, you know, in a very short 60-day session, I would not encourage them to do, you know, to do that and lose the ability to pass meaningful legislation. Like, you know, I'd rather they adopt speed cameras that can save lives than just have talking sessions in a hearing. So, and I think probably that's mostly the case on these initiatives. As far as my thinking on the issues, you know my position that I just can't believe that in our state, Washingtonians want more pollution. And I am totally opposed to an effort to totally destroy the protection of the Climate Commitment Act that prevents pollution. And those people who want to repeal the Climate Commitment Act are going to try to foist down our throats and our kids' lungs more pollution. They want to destroy our protection for our kids' breathing. And I can't countenance that. Now, people have talked about the financial aspect of this. They need to talk more about what the proponents want to do, which is to expose our kids to more pollution, because this is a pollution cap. And frankly, there hasn't been enough recognition of that in this discussion of this. We have a cap, we have a limit. It's there to protect our children's lungs and our forests from burning down and our salmon from disappearing. And that cap would be eliminated, not refined. This isn't a bill that has a thoughtful refinement or a refreshment. It is a destructive bill that would result in more pollution in the state of Washington. Secondly, it would result in the total elimination, again, not a modification, but the total elimination of every single dollar that is now going to help Washingtonians, that goes to free bus rides for our kids, which helps families' bottom lines, to getting electric buses for our kids. This bill would eliminate the ability to do filtration for our kids to breathe in their schools. And we know how bad that is during these horrible forest fires. Our kids can't breathe. This would eliminate our ability to help our kids breathe in their schools. And I think that's just wrong. So I am adamantly opposed to that proposal. It will fail in the legislature. And I guess I should not be ambiguous about my position in this regard.
I just want to follow up too, because the financial component, specifically the CCA money, is, you know, across the state's budget, and yes, you proposed in your budget proposal for lawmakers to spend more CCA money, but this initiative, when it goes to voters, will be at risk. So, how are you thinking now that the repeal initiative has qualified for the legislature, is going to go to voters? How are you thinking about the way lawmakers should approach the budget at this point, knowing that this huge bucket of money to go to these various climate projects could be taken away?
We should follow the desires of Washingtonians who want more transportation options. And this initiative, if passed, would blow a multi-billion-dollar hole in our ability to give people bridges and sidewalks and bus rides and everything else. And we should assume that Washingtonians are not going to do that. Washingtonians want less pollution, more transportation options for people, and more jobs. And I do not believe that they want more pollution, less jobs, and less transportation. So I'm encouraging legislators to stay the course, make these good investments, and then share with Washingtonians the benefits of these expenditures. Look, how often have you talked to people and said, I'd really like some more traffic jams here. I'd really like some more pollution. I'd like some more forest fires. I'd like to have kids have fewer free bus rides. And I just don't believe that that's where Washingtonians are. And when have you talked to Washingtonians who've said, let's go backwards on protecting our clean air? So I believe we should continue to stay the course and make these investments, which are very large. I mean, this would, if they weren't happening, this is, I think, a $5 billion hole in the transportation budget. People would not get things they want in transportation all over the state of Washington if this is repealed.
Governor, hundreds of asylum seekers are coming to Washington State. Many are ending up in a church in Tukwila where conditions are deteriorating by the day. How does your office feel about that growing situation, and would you encourage asylum seekers to keep coming to Washington or discourage them? What is your office doing?
Well, what we've done is we've provided about $3 million to the county that has allowed them to have excess money to provide housing for about 300 of the people who've been there. And we will continue to try to help everyone who is living in this tough, frigid weather to the extent humanly possible. But we obviously do not have unlimited funding. I can't just print money. We have suggested to the legislators that they continue to make investment in housing, including in our right-of-way initiative, and I hope that they will do so. But we need to build more housing for everyone, not just the asylum seekers. We had all kinds of people who are homeless, and we need more housing, period. And I hope that we will continue on that effort. Anything else?
I wanted to ask about the U.S. Supreme Court this week said it wouldn't take up the lawsuit challenging the capital gains tax, but there's still a repeal effort afoot. I wonder if you could kind of comment on the state of things when it comes to the capital gains tax, what you hope to see.
Well, I'm quite confident the legislature will not take any action to repeal it. And I'm very hopeful that the voters will not do so either. And I think there's reason to believe that they will continue to want to have more education funding. And this bill provides over $200 million to build more schools. The capital gains budget helps us do that. And it affects very, very few individuals of the super wealthy in our community. And I think the value system of our state is, in fact, to make those educational investments and to have a progressive, fair way to do it. So this doesn't fall on working people. Working people have paid too much as a percentage of the total revenues. So I think it is where Washington is, make investments in education and have a fairer tax system. The capital gains tax does both. I believe it will continue, and I'm supportive of it. Anything else?
Transportation budget, understanding that it's early yet, what's your understanding, or have you been speaking to lawmakers on the transportation committees about how kind of the numbers are shaking out?
Well, they're difficult, as you know, because the cost of construction has gone up just explosively in the last year, and that's affected every building project in the country, certainly ours as well. There will be have to be some decisions after I am out of office that they're going to have to wrestle with. This year, though, what's important is to maintain their existing sources of funding so we can at least have that funding. That's why I am hopeful and very confident that they won't destroy the funding for the transportation packages that we have that's in the Climate Commitment Act. And so that's an important thing, and we hope that they will articulate that as well. Anything else? Thanks a lot. Everybody stay warm. Keep your socks dry. Thanks a lot.